Welcome to my YouTube channel, Cars and Relevant Specs. Hence, you will see the title C.A.R.S. Yes, welcome to Cars. In this channel, my goal is to be featuring a variety of specifications of cars, engines, automobiles in general. And one of the ways that I will be doing that is by using automation, an amazing game that I found through Steam. And you can create your own engines from the ground up. I mean, literally, you can choose the material of the engine block, the pistons, the types of valve train, all of that. And I find that that's a great way to think about what's really going on and differentiating from engine A versus engine B and car A versus car B. So I am very much an automotive enthusiast, and I have owned a variety of different sporty vehicles and some not so sporty, but I do appreciate something about every car out there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little demonstration of a little taste of what part of the content will be. Now, I am also hoping to do some blogs, or not really blogs, that's the wrong word for it, actually podcasts about different discoveries that I'm making along the way, and also a variety of what I at least find to be very interesting specifications about new vehicles. For example, one I just saw the other day was about a Dodge Omni and how Carroll Shelby souped up a certain number of the 86 and 87 little Dodge Omni cars, and they were just these little front-wheel drive cars in the 80s that before Carroll Shelby got to them, not many people cared that much about them. But when Carroll Shelby got done, these particular ones were actually slightly faster by a few tenths around a racetrack, I think it was Willow Springs, than one of the classic 1960-something Ford Mustang GT350s. This was actually featured in one of the Dodge new product release videos this week. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate some of what you can expect to see in upcoming videos through this engine designer portion of the automation game that I had mentioned earlier. All right, so just for fun, let's go ahead and make a good old classic V8, except it will have the modern technology. So up here, this is related to the engine technology. Not necessarily the year the engine was produced, but it does relate to that. In any case, I'm going to spare you most of the details for now, and let's just enjoy making an engine. So let's start with the V angle. It's going to be 90 degrees, typical for a V8. And of course the 8 cylinders. Let's make this kind of classic style. So cast iron block. And let's make this one something that can rev really nicely though. So kind of that modern twist on a higher revving V8. So for a higher revving V8 with plenty of power, you want to have a wide bore, but you don't want the stroke to be too long. Otherwise it's going to have some issues with not reaching the ideal revs that I'm looking for here. We're going to go with the typical classic style of push rods, so good old push rod V8. For the heads, let's go ahead and stick with cast iron. So it's not really a lightweight engine, but we're not assembling an entire car here, which you have the option of doing with this game. We're just focusing on the engine, which, just to be open with you, I primarily just build engines with this particular game, but I have built a few cars, tested them out, and experimented with things such as gear ratios. You can do power to weight ratio comparisons. and run a computer test. Okay, so this is basically a 6-liter engine. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and do a, how about a forged steel crank? A little bit fancier than the typical cast iron. And for the connecting rods, let's go ahead and do lightweight forged, and for the pistons, we will do forged pistons. So again, it's just over 6 liters or 6,000 cc's. Variety of settings here. I hope to go over these in future videos. Compression ratio, let's go ahead and do 10.2 to 1, just as a starting point in this example. And some of these are good to play with as time goes on. Alright, nothing funny or different or unusual with this engine, just quick little design as an example. Naturally aspirated, much easier to tune than the turbocharged versions of a vehicle. In fact, this already has helped me to have an extra appreciation for the engineers and engine designers, especially with the modern turbo engine. Alright, we're going to do fuel injection. I'm going to stick with the multi-point injection, so the non-direct injection. I hope eventually this game has an option for both direct and sequential fuel injection. Alright, but we'll do a single throttle body, standard intake, and we're going to go with Super 93 AKI fuel. That's anti-knock index. That is a totally different system than what is used in Europe. So if you've ever heard that rumor, and yes, it is a rumor or incorrect information to be blunt, that European fuel is better than ours here in the United States, that's actually just because they use a totally different system in Europe. So for those of you in Europe, you have great gasoline. Here in the United States, so do we. It's just that ours is using a completely different way of coming up with the numbers. So the fuel is the same, the numbers are just different. And there are some great videos and websites out there that explain that with the actual technical detail. Alright, I am going to richen this up just a bit. Not too much. And we're going to advance the timing. Nothing crazy, but let's see what we can get out of this. And we're going to try shooting for somewhere around 6,800 RPM for our limit. With the headers, we're going to do tubular, so kind of fancy, but nothing too crazy. Dual exhaust, definitely. We're going to do bypass valves, really let it sing, so to speak. We'll do the high flow 3-way catalytic converter, so that's a modern twist there with this classic engine style. I like how right around this intake, the intake plenum, how it looks like something from the Dodge Charger SRT8s from the early 2000s, like 2007. Okay, so first muffler will be essentially a resonator, so straight through, but it's still a muffler. It's not having none in just the pipe itself. And then the second one will be a baffled muffler. I love how you can see various stats as you do that. Okay, so if we look here, we can see that the exhaust is a slight limiting factor to our horsepower, but I'd say a 50.8 millimeter or almost 2-inch exhaust is going to be plenty. In fact, that is exactly 2 inches. So we'll leave that for now. Well, you know what, on second thought, let's increase that slightly. Let's see what our horsepower and torque curve looks like. Oh yeah, that's definitely improving. Don't want to get too crazy. We'll go ahead and go with that. Open it up just a bit. Alright, and I see that our engine can handle a little bit more RPM, so I'm actually going to increase that. Okay, we're getting a warning, so there's valve float. Because we are not using a dual overhead cam, we're using the push rod. So I'm actually going to bring that down. So hey, 7,000 RPM. 6-liter V8, that's not bad. Alright, the internal's going to handle a lot more than that, but the nice thing is this engine will not be too stressed. The only thing holding it back is the older style push rod. Okay, so with that, we should be making about 405 horsepower and about 384 pound-feet of torque. Torque is horsepower. If you have any question about that, there's some great videos out there, and I hope to cover that in future videos. But for now, let's go ahead and do my favorite part, which is to run the test. So, without further ado, here goes our test. Alright, well there you have it. I will do one more little quick illustration using the automation game. So if I go to that engine designer, it should be this one here. As you can tell, I've designed lots of engines. Here's my engine. And I go in here. This is the arrow I was looking for earlier. You can go ahead and remove external items and really see what's going on. You can zoom in. And in this case, I like to see the exhaust. You'll notice why in a bit. But other than that, I'll leave that as is. And here goes another quick test manually. This time, as you noticed earlier, there's automatic as well as manual testing. Alright, you'll notice that the exhaust will glow, and on certain engines, depending on the engine and a variety of tuning factors, the exhaust will glow bright orange, even yellow. So that gives you an idea of what that looks like. So with that, I am going to go ahead and call that a video. So thank you all for watching. More content to come, and have a great day. Thanks for joining me again on C.A.R.S.